Hey, Dr. Lucas, did you hear about the decision that passed the Alabama Supreme Court the other day?
Yeah, the one that changes up some stuff regarding IVF.
Yeah, a lot of the people that I've seen online are worried about what it could mean for fertility in general and people trying to plan families with infertility problems and all that.
Yeah, so that one can become a very huge hot topic right there. It's almost a hot potato. Politically, socially, medically, that's just a hot potato in general. Because you've brought up something very true and real, right? People go through fertility treatments because they want another human being at the end of it, which there's nothing wrong with it. That's a natural desire for pretty much all of humanity. I'm a result of that. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. But in the world today, we have a lot of fertility problems. This is pretty huge. I think I was looking at some WHO stats, and I think what was it? Like 185 million people have, I think it's unexplained infertility. We'll post the stats down below, just some very quick, hey, you can look at it, but it's a lot of people. It's a whole country's worth easily. Now, is a lot of it in a third world? Sure. And there's a lot in the first world. This is not a unique, you don't have access to medical care issue. This is just as much a first world problem as anywhere else. In fact, it gets a little bit more dicey when you're in the first world. Let's just look at the IVF route, right? People are concerned that they're not going to have the ability to have families because they struggle with infertility problems. And for what it's worth, a lot of people do struggle with this. Dividing it up a little bit, 40% of women end up being the core component of their infertility, but also 40% of the time men end up being the issue. And then 20% of the time you're both to blame, right? Now, where does IVF fit into that? Well, it's the only guidance people are given. If you have fertility problems, what do you do about it? When you go to a fertility clinic, they'll take some samples, they'll tell you if your sperm's decent, they'll tell you if your eggs are decent, which I have some problems with the way in which they phrase those things because they're ignoring some critical functions, but we'll get into that later. But like you go there, you get some tests done, and they'll say, okay, give us $40,000, we'll inject you with hormones, we'll harvest your eggs, and then we'll go through all these other things, right? Oh, $40K for the chance of having a kid. Because here's the thing with IVF, you have, I think, a 1% chance higher than doing it like the old-fashioned way. So I think it's about 24-25% chance just like going at it the normal way to have a kid, and it's 25 or 26% chance of like success with IVF. It's some very poor chances. So why do people do this? It's the only option that they're given. If you take a more medical approach to things where the body's broken, we don't know why it's made this or why it's doing this, it's random, it's whatever, right? The body's broken. So you're either going to try and fix the body by forcing a reaction through medication, or you're going to try and mimic a normal function. And in the medical route, this bill does torpedo a lot of people's only option if they're going the medical route. Because again, all that just comes back down to I'm going to force the body to do something because I don't know why it's not doing it. Instead of asking the question, well, what happened to the normal function? Because we can all, by a simple observation, I mean, I'm married, I can see it, right? A woman's body goes through cycles of being fertile, right? Where it's, okay, we're in a time frame where there can indeed be a baby at the end of this. So what happens to break that down? Like, what causes that to stop functioning? Let's go through a couple patient stories, right? Obviously, I'm not giving any HPI out of this one, but a couple patient stories. There's a couple ladies that I'm working with, and they're all in different places, right? We've seen a lot of fertility problems here at the Wellness Way. We got one lady that she's gone through almost 15 miscarriages, and the healthcare system where she's at, like when she first started having this issue, they said you're too young to have fertility problems, and so they wouldn't send her to an OB for 8 years. At that point in time, they're like, oh, yep, you're too late for this. Now we have to, like, she just missed the boat on a lot of things because the system was too narrow, right? I got a hold of some of her lab work because she signed some paperwork and she sent it over, gave me legal permission, all that stuff. And I looked at it and said, okay, high immune system, high immune system, high immune system, high immune system. It's like, hey, did your docs ever tell you you've got chicken pox? She's like, wait, what? What do you mean I have chicken pox? Like, well, okay, obviously you don't have a breakout, but looking at your lab work, you're positive for chronic herpes zoster here. You've got an active viral infection, which explains why all your immune cells are constantly cranked up. None of them were medically high, right? But just like a stock market watcher, right, looking at what's the direction things are going, you've got some chronic immune stress here, right? When somebody comes to the Wellness Way for help with infertility, that's one of the first things that we look at is what's the rest of the system doing? Because ladies, your body is pretty dang smart. You might not feel like it sometimes, but that's because you haven't been taught, you don't understand the normal functions, and I'm gonna get lambasted for that, and I say, bring it on. Show me I'm wrong through simple physiology, right? When you have a chronic immune stressor, your body's gonna say, forget the kid, I need to take care of this thing. Because that's a lot of resources and a lot of energy. What's step one? To an alternative route to IVF where you're not gonna spew out $40,000, insurance may or may not cover it, right? And they're probably gonna stop covering it at some point in time. We've seen people spend like $160,000, almost $200,000+ on IVF. Yeah, it's not pretty because again, you have a 1% higher chance than doing it the good old-fashioned way. So step one is look at the immune system, right? Because something is triggering your body to prefer a fight or flight state over a rest and digest, being at ease. If we were to break it down and use like an analogy, we can use digestion, fight or flight. You get stressed, whether it's mentally or physically, right? You're running from a bad boss or you're running from a tiger, body's going to treat it the same. It's going to drop that stomach acid because it's less concerned about its last meal and more concerned about getting to its next meal, okay? Don't let the last one be the last one. I want the next one. That's how your body handles things. And it'll treat your menstrual cycle the exact same way. Chronic stress, long-term stress, is going to alter your normal menstrual cycle. Ladies, you've experienced it before. I'll use an example from my old dating history. I was dating a nurse at one point in time. She was getting really concerned about an upcoming exam. She had no ovarian problems before, but she was so stressed and chronically stressed, right? And that's the thing. It's not just a one-off deal. It's poking, like a stone in the shoe, right? Or constantly stubbing your toe. She stressed herself into having ovarian cysts. They found them on ultrasound. And I knew enough at the time to say, hey, look, hang on a second. Don't panic over this. You've become so stressed. This is now what's happened. How do I know that? You just look at a steroid hormone chart, right? We've mapped this out a long time ago. All of your female hormones that promote fertility, right, and have the ability to get pregnant, are all the same hormones that get pulled into your stress responses, right? Look at a steroid hormone chart. That pregnenolone, which turns into that progesterone, can get pulled right down into cortisol, which is a long-term stress hormone, among other things. But that's a major function, right? And that's the thing with like chronic immune stress. It'll also crank up your cortisol quite a bit because your body's more concerned about getting through this current virus before it looks at bringing up the next generation, right? Survive the current generation to bring about the next one. But then a lot of women underestimate like nutritional deficiency issues. And I don't just mean like clinically you are deficient, because you don't have to be beyond normal range, which is just, are you over here, are you over here? And it's like, it's really wide. Some very basic things, feed your liver, or even feed like the production of normal immune cells, because fertility is highly regulated by the immune system. Imagine that. But then like the last component we've already really touched on is what's this thing that's stressing your system, right? If it's not immune, if it's not nutrient, what's going on elsewhere? Because I've seen a lot of women where their stress tanked out their ability to get pregnant. It's just like when you're running from the tiger. You're not going to be concerned about the current fertility cycle. You're going to be concerned about surviving to the next one. And if your body has to put that out for a long time, it will. So those are the three general things that we look for from a wellness way perspective of what do you do when you're dealing with infertility. Which, oh, by the way, there's a way that's not the medical route for dealing with your fertility problems. There's plenty that's already written about this, and it was written before we were really around. Some great articles that'll be posted down below about, hey doc, what do we do with infertility? What do we do if we don't want to go down this route? Honestly, change your eating. Chronic inflammation, which is going to take off the immune system, and is going to create stress. Two pretty major fertility components right there. Food can do that. Food can stress out both of those things. A lot of people find a lot of success with the Mediterranean diet for improving fertility outcomes. Don't take my word for it. Take the NIH, right? They've looked at it. It's a studied thing, and it's a very repeatably studied thing. Now, is it the only thing? No, your health is never just one thing. It's an amalgamation of things, right? So what do we do about that? Obviously, we have to do some testing, because if you don't know why the system is stressed out, you can't help the system, right? Because your body is different from your body, is different from your body, and those needs and what's triggering these things are going to be different, okay? And a very common thing that messes up fertility long-term is birth control. And there's a whole bunch of different ways it does it. Elon Musk and Michael Knowles both brought it up. Michael Knowles brought it up about Elon Musk bringing it up and how birth control makes you fat, depressed, and suicidal, right? I already knew that ahead of time. It's like, oh, shoot. Of course those things would do that. But even from a long-term health standpoint, these things will seriously alter your normal fertility cycle, right? They're an endocrine disruptor. They alter your whole body's function. And your progesterone, the estrogens, like all these things have a lot to do with regulating your fertility. And the organs that produce them are very cyclic, like the menstrual cycle relies on these organs increasing and decreasing their functions. If you have a long-term suppression of this normal organ function, a lot of ladies have been through this when they try to come off birth control, they're really miserable. Because from a medical perspective, there's no way to help restore normal function. You're either on it or you're off it. But from a wellness way perspective, we ask the question, what does the system need in order to function normally? How do we help restore that normal function? Birth control is one of those things that's a little tricky because there's so many different ways in which you can screw up the system. Your body will respond differently. So what do you do if the Alabama bill is affecting your life or you think it's going to affect it? Look for another way. Because honestly, that $40,000 that could be spent on IVF, yeah, somebody could buy like 20 years of time with me with that much. And it's not because my services are dirt cheap and they're not like, no, people get great results with us. We just don't need it to be that expensive, right? We get it. Talking to us is a huge starting point for that because these doctors, like the one patient where she had almost 15 miscarriages, they missed that she had an active viral infection. They ignored it and they didn't even bring it up with her. From a medical perspective, it's not important because it's not a medical emergency. From our perspective, it's affecting the system's normal functions. So what do we do about it? We help support the normal functions, help work on the stress, help take that pressure off of the immune system, give the body what it needs to function normally. And it's not just this, oh, here, take a couple herbs, and then like, no life changes needed. There's a lot that goes into setting up the body. And this is exactly what we do day in and day out. So connect with us. We'd be more than happy to talk with you about how those other options go. We've got plenty of patient stories, wellness way babies, where it's like, yeah, no, I couldn't get pregnant. And then we got connected with one of the doctors. It's not even just one of us, it's all of us that work on this. So there's a couple of links below that you'll be able to take advantage of if you want to just talk about what that looks like. Anyways, we'll talk more about what Elon Musk / Michael Knowles had to say about birth control because, frankly, that's one of those things that kind of keeps me in business. Not because I benefit from it, but because so many young ladies get really screwed up by it. And when they want to live a normal life afterwards, nobody's there to walk them through, how do I get my body back to normal? Medicine can't do that. But then again, you can't medicate yourself into health. Leave a comment below if you want to weigh in and or lambast me for challenging the golden calf of IVF. I'm more than happy to engage with you down below as time permits. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and life's better when you live the wellness way.